turn 2 of my playthrough of Labyrinth, a solitaire playthrough using the new and improved Jihadist AI flowchart, but none of the Jihadist ideology difficulty settings, which with the new flowchart you get 5 options to add into the game to make it more difficult, but since this is a learning game, we're playing it on easy mode. And what I wanted to do in this video is slow things down to give you a sense of what happens from action phase to action phase, card play to card play during the solitaire game. Kind of zipped through turn 1 in an effort to keep that video short, but not a lot of people continue watching the rest of the playthrough, and those who do usually like a little bit more detail, so we're going to do that at least for now. I wanted to make a quick correction. I forgot to place a Cadre recruit marker in Afghanistan after we removed the last cell. And that, I think, is about it for now that I've noticed. I noticed that these were switched, but that doesn't affect anything. I haven't even used those tracks yet, but you could play a card to add 1 or 2 ops to your reserves that you can then spend with another card later on. And that resets to 0 at the end of the turn, the end of the entire hand. So we're going to jump right into the Jihadist action phase, card 1. We're going to draw our from the top of the deck, and I've sleeved these cards to facilitate shuffling. So we're going to draw blindly from the top, and we get a US associated event with an ops value of 3. Enhanced measures. US interrogates detainees roughly. Play if US hard and disrupt possible. First we need to figure out, looking over at the flowchart, is this a playable non-US event? No, because it's a US event. Is it a playable US event? Well, let's see. Looking over here to your left, the US is indeed hard in its posture toward in its global war on terror. Is it possible to disrupt? Well, here's a look at the map, and I'm looking over at the US operations section of the player aid card over there. The purpose of the disrupt operation is to remove cells or cadres and gain prestige, and you target non-Muslim countries, not Iran. Iran is its own thing, it's just Iran. So when they say non-Muslim countries, that does not include Iran. Allies or countries with at least 2 troops, and those of course would be countries that also have cells or a cadre recruit marker. So there is one non-Muslim country that qualifies, and that is actually way out there in Canada. If you remember, in the beginning of turn 1, a sleeper cell popped up in Canada, and it's kind of been quietly sitting there, hoping we forget about it. An ally, well, Afghanistan right here is an ally, and it contains a cadre recruit marker. So Afghanistan would qualify as a place to disrupt. So yeah, this is a playable US event. And I'm not going to go any further because I know that once we find out that it's playable, you don't get to play the event anyway. So that's a yes. Answer, plot, ignore event. In the 2-player game, you can, when the Jihadist player plots for the first time during that any given turn, they can play that, they have to play that card in this slot down here on the board, this first plot slot, and ignore the action associated, the event if it's a playable event, sorry, the event. So in the solitaire game, whenever the AI uses a US playable event to plot on a given turn, any number of times on that turn, they can ignore the US event. So now we're just ignoring all that text and looking up here, and this is a 3 ops card. And now what we do is, since we got the answer, what the AI is going to do with that card's plot, you flip this over and then you look up and down here, and these are the various operations that the jihadist AI would perform, along with another special one, which is radicalization, which is a special kind of operation that only happens during the solitaire game. Otherwise, these happen just like they do in the regular two-player game, meaning all of the information associated with these major operations, these main operations, are on the jihadist player aid card. But in order to determine which country to target, we look at these flowcharts. And there's, here, we start here, as much as possible in the US. Well, the purpose of plotting is to place one of those available plot markers from this box onto a country, a target country. And what that does is, at the end of the action phases, when it comes time to resolve plots, it allows you to go through these unblocked plots step, an extra step here. And that can raise funding, lower prestige, worsen governance, remove aid, change posture, or win the game via WMD being in the US. So it causes all sorts of problems for the US player. Or helps you in your funding. And you can target non-Islamist rule countries that have cells. There are no Islamist rule countries, but there are only certain countries that have cells, and that's Canada, Iraq, Pakistan, and Somalia. So the US does not have cells, so that would be, we'd have to pass over that. Prestige low. The US prestige is actually at high, right here. Over here is low. And that affects die roll modifiers when the US player wants to conduct a war of ideas. So prestige is low? No. Abu Sayyaf and cells greater to or equal than the number of troops in the Philippines? Well, the Philippines is still untested. There are no cells, there are no troops, there's no Abu Sayyaf, so that's a no. In countries with troops, well, there are only two countries with troops. It's the troops that we began the game with, the Gulf states and Saudi Arabia, neither of which have cells, so that's a no on that. GWOT penalty greater than 0. Well, you look over here and their stance is the same, the world and the US, so there's no penalty. So that is no. Actually, that was a yes or no question, so that's no. In countries with US's posture, there are two countries that are hard, Israel and I just realized that this should be up 1 to 2. Israel and Canada. So Canada has a cell. It has a sleeper cell. So that is where we would be able to conduct our plot action. And then looking at this card, it has a 3-out value. There are 3 black dice that come in the game. These are for the jihadist player, and then there's this 1 tan die that the US player uses. And I haven't been using it this game. This die is cursed. It's jinxed. I'm hoping it'll wear off by the next time I play the game. So you grab the 3 dice, but you can only make the number of rolls equal to the number of cells in the target country, which is 1. So you actually just roll 1 die, and you look at the governance of that country. Canada has a permanent governance of good, which, if you look at, I'll just pull this up, has a value of 1. And you have to roll equal to or less than a governance to succeed. So here we have 1 chance to roll a 1. And we roll a 5, so that failed. And nothing happens. But one thing that I forgot to do is, for each roll, 1 cell there must go or already be active. So now that cell is no longer a sleeper cell, it's now activated and makes it that much easier for the US to disrupt and remove that cell and leave behind, and it leaves behind a cadre. We draw our second card. And it is a jihadist-associated event. FREs, former regime elements go guerrilla. Play if troops in Iraq. There are no troops in Iraq, so this is not... Is it a playable non-US event? No. Is it a playable US event? No. Major Jihad success possible? In order for a Major Jihad to even be able to succeed, you have to be able to target a non-Islamist ruled Muslim country with 5 more cells than troops. So there's no country that even has 5 cells, so that's a no. Jihad possible in good or fair countries? A jihad is, in this case, it's a minor jihad. And you can target Muslim countries containing cells and not under Islamist rule. That would be Iraq, Pakistan, and Somalia. However, none of those are fair, good, or fair, so that's a no. Cells available on the jihadist funding track? Yeah, there are plenty. Whoa! Having issues with my tripod. Okay, so that is a cells available, yes. So recruit is the answer, and we flip this over, and we take a look here, and we figure out in which country we recruit. In regime change country, blah blah blah, there are none. In Islamist rule, no, there are none. In non-Islamist rule, non-regime change country with highest recruit success. So that would be, let's see. Well, you can only recruit in countries with cells or cadres, which is Afghanistan, Pakistan, Iraq, and Somalia. And Canada. In order to figure out amongst those countries which country becomes the target for our recruit action, we can look over here in the recruit priorities section. And first we choose besieged regimes, which is Somalia. It's our only besieged regime. So that becomes the target for our recruit action. And we roll 1 die. And this, we'll discard that. And we must roll equal to 2 or less than the country's governance, which is 3. So we roll a 4. And that failed. So, nothing happened. Here's a look at the US hand of 9 cards. And it's a pretty good hand. Most of these, all of these 6 cards are US associated events. These 2 are unassociated events, and we only have 1 jihadist event card. And as the US player, you don't have to play all the cards in your hand. When you're down to 1 card, you can choose to just hold on to it, or discard it without triggering the event, or play it if you want to. Okay, for the first US card, we're going to play this for the ops. As much as we would like to trigger the hijab associated event, we're going to take advantage of our position of Saudi Arabia's alignment and position there to try to improve that. Pakistan is another good target for that, but there's not much happening down over here, and I'm a little concerned about Somalia and want to start creating a better network around in this area of fair to good posture or governance countries, I suppose. So we're going to focus over here and roll on the War of Ideas table to improve the governance of Saudi Arabia from poor to fair. And we roll a die, and we get a +1 for being high on the prestige track. and we get another +1 for being adjacent to a good ally. So that's +2. There are no penalties. We're not attempting to shift to good. There are no aid markers either. So we're on a +2. We roll one die. We roll a modified 4, which means that we don't succeed, but we do get aid there for a future attempt. And that would, each aid marker would add another +1 to our die roll. For our next action, I think we're going to play this card, Intel Community, for the event. U.S. agencies focus on counter-terror. Inspect jihadist hand, conduct a 1-value operation. You may interrupt this action now to play an extra card. So I believe what this means is that I can actually grab the jihadist hand and look at it. Wow! Okay, they have a lot of jihadist associated events and a lot of high valued ones as well. I think I'm going to take a look at this a little bit more in detail here off camera. I see that they have Axis of Evil coming up here, which means that if we have, among other cards, Iran in our hand, we would have to discard it. And I do have Iran, so I'm going to switch my plan here on what card I'm going to interrupt this action phase with. So I inspected the jihadist hand, and now I can conduct a 1-value operation, and I think I'll actually commit a reserve with that 1-value operation, and now I may interrupt this action phase to play an extra card. We're going to play this for the ops, and actually spend a reserve again. Spend the reserve that we just accumulated to try to conduct another war of ideas in Saudi Arabia. This time we would get a +3 on the die roll, and that's a success. This aid goes away, and we've improved governance from poor to fair. Now they're a fair ally. Next card, they get Axis of Evil, surprise, surprise. It is a playable non-US event. So that is yes. Event recruits replaces cells, that's no. Play event. Unassociated event, no. And okay, so we just play the event. So the US discards any Iran, Hezbollah, or Jaish al-Mahdi cards from hand, which we have none of. And we would change the US posture to hard. It's already at hard, so after that we would roll prestige. Rolling prestige is never good in my experience. So we would roll a die first to determine if our prestige drops or rises. We roll a 6. That's great. And then we roll 2 dice to determine how much we shift our prestige by, and we would do that by the lower die amount. We roll 2 5s. Wow. So our prestige just went through the roof here. So that actually really helped us. Next card. Play if any cells are in a regime change country. There are no regime change countries, so it's not a playable event. No, no, no. Jihad possible? Yes, I believe so. Pakistan, Iraq, Somalia. Good or fair? That would... Oh, good or fair? No. Cells available? Yes. Recruit. and we would recruit in the country with the highest recruit success. Again, same answer, but once more, our options are Iraq, Pakistan, Somalia. Besieged regimes take priority, so we bring yet another cell, first by rolling, and that was a 3-op card, so we roll 3 dice, and we get 2 successes, bringing 2 into Somalia, and now a major jihad would be possible there. For the US action phase, I'm going to play a 1-op card to increase reserves, and a 2-op card along with that additional point in reserves to conduct a war of ideas in Pakistan. And there we get a +1 for being adjacent to a good ally, +2 for being very high on the US prestige track. And we roll a 5. That is a success, and we're going to improve governance from poor to fair. Back to the jihadist player. They pull homegrown jihad roots among Britons. Place a cell in the UK. That is a playable non-US event, and it recruits or places cells, and the track has cells, so you play the event, and that would end that. We would now test the posture by rolling on the posture table. We roll a 6 hard. Very strange but lucky rolls throughout this game so far. And that bumps the US GWOT relations all the way to 3 hard, which is the same posture as the US. The second card is this. The door of each jihad was closed. Pardon the pronunciation. Sunni intolerance of reform. Play if a country tested or improved to fair or good this or last action phase. This or last. They did. I did in Pakistan, so we would play this. Worsen its governance 1 level toward poor. All that for nothing. I should have remembered not to do that, and I completely forgot. Even after Intel community. I think instead what we'll do is play these both for their events. Special Forces, Rangers, and SEALs. Play if there is a cell in or adjacent to a country with troops. Yeah. Remove the cell. And Predator. These are similar types of cards. Drones deny extremist sanctuary. Remove a cell from a Muslim country. That's not Iran. Okay. The first jihadist card is this. Fatah. Pakistan's tribal areas host jihadists. Place a cell in Pakistan. No disrupt operations there unless regime change. Blocks US, Bin Laden, and Zawahiri removed by Pakistani offensive. So, it's a playable non-US event. Yes. Recruit cells, yes. Yes. Play event. Okay, so, that places a cell back in Pakistan. No disrupt operations there unless regime change. I'm going to dig through this cup of permanent or lingering event markers and try to find the corresponding one. Okay, found it. Next card is former Soviet Union. Secular authoritarianism. Set Central Asia to neutral and roll its governance as if in an initial test. It is a playable non-US event, but it doesn't recruit or place cells. You still play the event, but since it's an unassociated event, you also check to see if a Major Jihad is possible or a Minor Jihad, and if not, you would then recruit or travel. So this actually harms them because they're already at adversary after ex-KGB. Looking up here. So we're going to set it to neutral and roll and test its governance. We roll a 1, it stays at poor. But since it's an unassociated event, we would check to see if a Major Jihad is possible, and down here, indeed. This non-Islamist rule Muslim country has 5 more cells than troops. Major Jihad. Yep. Okay, so that means that all cells in target country go active. And then proceed per Minor Jihad except 2 successes or 1 success if besieged regime, and it is. That was a 2-op card. It's 2 dice. We would only need 1 success. We have 1 success. Rolled a 2, and this is now Islamist rule adversary. So it's no longer a besieged regime. And add resources to funding 1, so funding is back up to 9. Okay, now for the US action phase. This goes up 1. We're gonna play this card that we were holding for fear that it would increase jihadist funding, and since it's now at 9, makes no difference. And with it, we are going to conduct a regime change operation, even though it'll mean that we would be drawing 1 less card during at the beginning of the next turn, which is coming right around the corner here. So 3 ops. US must be hard, which it is. Must be an Islamist rule country that we target. We place 6 troops here. Now we shift this to ally, roll for governance. We roll a 4, so it's a poor ally. Place a regime change marker on our troop cubes and roll for prestige. We roll a 6. Well, we're already at 12. We'll go ahead and, this goes back down, play this for the ops to disrupt that active cell in Canada and replace it with the Cadre recruit marker, which is right here. This goes back to the funding track. Okay, the last jihadist card is this. I did the flowchart already, and that means they recruit a cell in Pakistan. We roll once, we roll a 4, and that is a fail. And that ends turn 2.